dance that the little girl threw. She wants to pass by you, but can't you see? She wants to dance with me.
Hey, baby, won't you take a chance?
Let the little girl dance. She never danced before. Let her on the floor. Let the little girl dance. Let the little girl dance. She wants to give you a try. So let the little girl by. She's been a little wallflower on the shelf, standing by herself. Now she got the nerve to take a chance. So let the little girl dance, let the little girl through. She wants to pass by you, but can't you see? She wants to dance with me.
Great to see you, Xavier. Now I've got the microphone on. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for checking in. G'day, Facebook user. Thanks for checking in. Hi, Luke. Great to see you, mate. Type hashtag spy in the chat. Should be able to hear now. Hope, Joy. I was practicing, see if you could do my lip reading. That's the second thing I've stuffed up today already. So anyway, why have we got music to start the program with people dancing? Well, this week in Victoria, this man got jailed for trying to smuggle in 45 kilograms of drugs in a jukebox. And while they were moving their jukebox around with their drugs in it, they were joking, what if the police were listening to what we're doing? Well, the police were listening to what they were doing. There was a bug in the jukebox. So they've been jailed for importing those drugs. So that happened using a jukebox. And this brought up one of the questions this week that I've been asked to explain. So let's have a look where my questions are. Got some questions here somewhere. They're coming. They were here. Here's my questions. And look at that. What kind of music do private investigators listen to? So we'll answer that today, and we'll have some jobs and some other stuff as well. Good to see everybody typing in hashtag spy. So if you've won before, you won't be able to win again. So if you have won before, you won't have another go. So, but type it in anyway. Last week we only had 2 entries based on that. So good chance that you might win that coffee mug. Okay. So type it in, people, and let's see what happens. Man in the Gold Coast has to pay his wife $1 million for putting on a balaclava and violently attacking her in her own bedroom. What a dropkick. So that happened this week on the Gold Coast. You can be awarded it by the court, but getting it, that's another thing. This young lady was fired by IAG. The Fair Work Commission upheld her firing because she was not typing enough on her laptop, her work laptop, when she was working from home. So that's an interesting one that happened this week. So a lot of things been happening this week. The Office of Fair Trading in Queensland, asleep at the wheel. This is the licensing regulator for security guards and private investigators. Totally asleep at the wheel, asleep at work. The Office of Fair Trading, this is what it looks like in the Office of Fair Trading. You just go to work, you don't do anything, and you go to sleep. Every other regulator in Australia has updated the units of competency for private investigators, except the Office of Fair Trading in Queensland. The Office of Fair Trading want the units from the old CPP 30607 qualification. There they are, incorrect Office of Fair Trading units on the left, the correct ones are on the right. Office of Fair Trading operating 50 years behind every other regulator in Australia. Shameful that they're doing that in the regulator. I don't know what they've done in security guards, but it's not looking good for investigators in Queensland. Got incompetent regulator in Queensland. Yeah, I'll tell you what sort of idiot would do that? He must have had a real problem. Oh dear. Yeah, so you can be awarded the $1 million, but doesn't mean you're going to get it. Hope she gets it. That would be a terrible experience, terrifying. It was a violent attack. Could a private investigator do part-time work and still work a regular full-time job? Well, you can. I've got investigators in New South Wales and Victoria and Queensland that only do about 6 hours work a week. They've got children to run around. They've got other things to do. They plan in the future upping those hours. But right now, they've just kept it down to a bare minimum. I wouldn't recommend it. You know, I don't like half-quarter doing anything. If you want to go and be something, be the best you possibly can. I don't recommend you just like dip your toe in the water. To me, that's, you know, that's not good form. You don't go and play half a footy game, half a netball game, half a hockey game, that sort of thing. Yeah, you go in, have a full go, because your opportunities there are enormous out there in investigations. Down in Victoria, talking about regulators, the CFMEU down there have been filming Victorian WorkSafe regulators as they go on site to have a look at accident scenes. And they put it up on Facebook this week and called them weak safe, and were very inflammatory towards them. So WorkSafe said they're not going to have anything to do with them, not going to talk to them anymore, and they're going to take their cricket bat and ball and go home. Victorian WorkSafe has been a little bit soft. If you're a regulator, you regulate. You don't let a union kick you around. This is what happens when you've got a union government. So they're in bed with each other. And so the victims of that are the compliance enforcement officers that have to go out and take that sort of crap. If you're a compliance enforcement officer, you don't speak to unions. They can film you. You don't talk back to them like the guy did in the video. Okay, he only arrived there and they're at him. You've got to be prepared for that, and you've got to be trained for that. Victorian WorkSafe have really terrible training for their inspectors. Awful, woeful training for their inspectors. Never got it right. So, Office of Fair Trading and WorkSafe this week. Who's next? We'll think of somebody. Let's have a look at some of the job vacancies. I've got to do a quick switch over. Here we go. That's not a job vacancy. That's something that happened here a long time ago. Corporate Investigator Services in Victoria looking for general insurance investigators. Great opportunity. Barrington's in New South Wales after CTP investigators. They do NRMA's work, and they've been doing it for over 30 years now. How's that for having a client for a long time? Well done. Pretty good work by Barrington's. What do we got here? Shawfact. Pat Henderson down at Shawfact is hiring investigators. He's looking for investigators in New South Wales and in Victoria. This is Pat Henderson as well. Don't tell him I did that. Very close resemblance there. If you're looking for jobs, people, get on the Australian Security Academy Facebook jobs page, Australian Private Investigator, Corporate and Government Investigation Jobs. We put up jobs that have come up this week, and we leave the old jobs there so you can research your career as an investigator and see what's available. This is a great opportunity with McDonald's. They want a senior workplace investigator to look at their investigations that happen internally at McDonald's. So it could be slip, trips and falls of staff or patrons visiting for liability issues, that sort of thing. Could be code of conduct issues. That's available this week at McDonald's. Corruption prevention specialist is required, and they're paying $3,000 a week at TAFE New South Wales. Now, less than 6 years ago, I sued TAFE New South Wales for copyright when they copied one of my security risk management units, and I won that matter. And no wonder they need a corruption prevention specialist, because it's a lot less expensive to pay 150 grand a year than it is to lose a court case of the magnitude of that copyright issue. Yes, that's Pat Henderson. He looks like that. Don't tell him. Do not tell Pat Henderson that I said he looks like Gru. Student investigator job for 3 months at the University of Sydney. And this is total rubbish. Only an HR manager would advertise a job for 3 months. You wouldn't even get in there, have your induction and put your pencils and your paper clips in the right place before you're out. That's a ridiculous job. Don't apply for that one. Don't want that. TAFE New South Wales are looking for an integrity officer. Now, this one, they're not paying as much as they were for the other one, but still it's an opportunity for a compliance enforcement officer in a corporate investigation role. Massel Group down in Melbourne, they've employed everybody that I've sent them from the Australian Security Academy. That's pretty good. They're looking for a licensed private investigator, a factual investigator down in Melbourne. Don't miss that opportunity to snap up that job. That's a really good one with Massel. They'll look after you. Workers' compensation investigations, senior dispute resolution for general insurance at AFCA. Now, if you have a dispute about your investigation, that's where it's going to end up, and the claims manager and the claimant will go to it. You won't have to go there because it's a tribunal. It's only between those two people. A compliance investigation manager for the Aboriginal Areas Protection Authority is on offer up in the NT in Darwin. Great opportunity up there. Factual investigators wanted by Quantum Corp in New South Wales. They've asked me to send everybody I've got, so that should send you a good message. Today we've had at Investigations Uni, Pat Glynn talking us through 11 different types of investigations. So you can watch the replay when I send you the correct link in the email next week. I've got to go back here. So they're the jobs that are available around the country. This is not all of them, it's just most of them that have been new this week. So great opportunities there as a private investigator. What kind of music do private investigators like? Well, it seems it'd be like...
Yeah, why you guys always ask things to make you...
Things that make you go.
Things to make you go. Yeah. Things to make you go.
Things that make you go.
It's the things that make you go.
Hey, ladies.
Nah, that's not what private investigators like. So other jobs that are available this week, this is a beauty. Don't miss out on this one. This is an amazing work from home opportunity with Vendor Management. They've employed every one of our students that's applied to them at the Australian Security Academy. They're a great team at Vendor Management. They are supportive. They'll help you to succeed in the industry, and they have got work for licensed case officers to work from home all around Australia in investigations. Great opportunity. And this one, people, don't miss this. If you're a newly licensed Australian Security Academy student, like the one last week and the week before that sent me their resume, I pass it straight on to them. My client is an established 30-year investigation agency with multiple contracts with insurance companies around Australia. They are seeking CTP liability investigators down in Melbourne, Victoria. And they've said to me, send every graduate, no experience required, no experience necessary. They must be a licensed private investigator and an Australian Security Academy graduate student and a member of an industry association. So you are a member of an industry association when you graduate from the Australian Security Academy. You are a member of AIRLAP. Now, a question came up this week, how do I become an active member of AIRLAP? Well, when you get your invitation to our Investigations Uni, basically that means you're a member of AIRLAP, and that's basically our meetings. Now, I used to run them monthly, but that was too hard. So we changed to running them weekly and called it Investigations Uni and had CPD put into it. So that's where all that fits in. So basically, if you're a member of Investigations Uni, you're in the AirLap CPD program, and that's what clients like that one you just saw there, over 30 years they've been in existence, and they want you to go and work for them if you're an Australian Security Academy graduate student. And if you take part in that Investigations Union and the CPD, it's even better for you. So you're watching episode 224 of Spy Curious. What else have we got on this week? We are looking at what kind of music private investigators like. What a great question. Really good question. I thought it was brilliant. So we've got to go through. Do they like disco crap?
To me, I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles. Since you came along, you sexy thing.
No, I don't think they like that. So we'll find out exactly what they actually like in a minute. The other question, if you saw it earlier, with right in the middle of where our questions were, have any of your investigations ever taken you overseas? Good question. So you're going to have a passport, and it's a really common thing, particularly in brand protection. So what will happen is the client will decide that someone's ripping them off with a fake copies of their very expensive handbags or whatever, and they're selling them at the airport out of the duty-free shops. So your job will be to undercover, go in, buy 6 fake handbags, fly to Auckland, stay there overnight, come back in with your handbags and take them to your client, who will then check the veracity and authenticity of those handbags. Now, you've seen that come up in New South Wales and Victoria this week, where there's a retail shop been selling fake handbags. So that's not a duty-free one, but it's a really common one for duty-free fake designer goods. That's clothing, handbags, shoes, jewelry, the whole deal. So they're really a specialist lady thing. I'm gonna look strange if I walk into a duty-free shop and buy 6 handbags. That's probably not going to happen. Be an absolute emergency for that to happen, and it would be required in 8 hours, and they couldn't get anybody else. So I guess I could carry it off. I don't know. Say I'm a collector, but that kind of thing, when you have brand protection investigations, those brands invest a lot of money in protecting themselves. So keep that in mind. That's when you will have to go overseas. Yeah, that's where I'm coming to. I'm just a bit late getting to my comments. So that's one. Now, if you go back, and if you're a member of Spy Curious, if you're a member of Investigations Uni, this one, and you get your weekly invitation to that program, if you go back to this episode, which is here, where we have Ivan talking about Transport Accident Commission investigations and CTP liability. I can't remember the number, but it says TAC investigations on your links in your invitation email. That's a link that's working today, unlike the one I sent that didn't work. Ivan is talking about, he went overseas. It's episode 44 in your link, people, for Investigations Uni. He went overseas to interview this man who was injured in a Victorian registered vehicle in Western Australia, and the value of his claim was $9 million as a result of his injuries in that CTP liability accident. Now, Ivan tells us why he had to go overseas and speak to the man and speak to his accountant and speak to someone else. I can't remember who it was, but Ivan tells us all about that in episode 44 in Investigations Uni on your email list. Now, $9 million is a heck of a lot of money, but this man was a lawyer. He was an international model. He was a very high earning accident victim. And Ivan went over there, number one, to see that he was still alive. Because, as Ivan pointed out, there are some countries where the families don't often tell the authorities that a person has died. Now, in this case, he was alive, but in other cases, people have collected pensions from the age of 65 to the age of 115, and no one ever told the authorities that they died at the age of 72. So keep that in mind. That happens, and that's what he went over there to check. So this is a pretty extreme example. Today, you might be able to do it by CCTV, I don't know, but for $9 million, I'd be jumping on a plane with an economy ticket and going over there and checking that one myself. So that's an example of where an investigator will actually do that. So extreme, yes, but it does happen. Most interviews where it's just an accident on a work site, at a dam or a tunnel or something like that, and the engineers are now working in the Amazon or in West Africa or something like that, you'll be able to do those interviews online through Polonius, okay, and you'll be able to get a statement from them through that method. That's what they do. But if it's a $9 million claim, which is very rare, you will be going back overseas for that. So keep that in mind. Have a look at this kind of music. Do private investigators like country and western music?
Don't tell my heart, my achy breaking heart. I just don't think he'd understand. And if you tell my heart, my achy breaking heart, he might blow up and kill this man.
They don't. Definitely don't like that. So this has all come about because, because of our jukebox in Victoria, where the police had it bugged and were recording the conversations of the people that were importing the drugs. So really interesting matter there coming out of Victoria this week with that one. If you are looking for a job in Victoria as a factual investigator, get in touch with Seeker Investigations, ask for Rob and tell him Mike Evans sent you. If you do that today, you'll start work at 9 a.m. on Tuesday. So keep that in mind, people. That's a wonderful opportunity to grab a job down in Victoria with Seeker Investigations. They're looking for factual investigators. Got to get my other jobs right here. Whoops. I've done that one for general insurance. I've done that one. Yeah, there is another one I've got to show you. Where is it? This is really important. This job's still available. It's been going for some time. No, lost it. Don't know what I've done with that one. We'll bring it, come back here. Got too many screens open. Here it is. Here we go. Here we go. Okay, my client has told me he wants 3 surveillance investigators. Now, Quantum Corp want 3 surveillance investigators. This is a different client. They want Australian Security Academy graduate students for surveillance investigation because they've had very good experience with other Australian. If you want a surveillance job in New South Wales, send me your resume and I'll pass it on to my client. They are looking for surveillance investigators. Clarity Investigations are seeking factual investigators anywhere in Australia. Doesn't matter where you are, they want to engage you. Since January 2023, Clarity Investigations have engaged and put on 23 Australian Security Academy graduates. And they're looking for more. So that's pretty amazing. They're looking for factual investigators in New South Wales and Victoria. And you add that to Massel Group, who've employed every investigator that's gone to them from the Australian Security Academy this year. It's pretty good value, people. Do investigators like this sort of music? No, they don't like that. They're fussy, aren't they? They don't like that music either. So people, keep in mind, Quantum Corp, Massel, Seeker and Surefact are all looking for investigators. You can see those job vacancies at this Facebook page. That's really important. Right, what happens when someone holds an additional citizenship, i.e. in my case, ex-Brit colony, Commonwealth law, primarily plus some EU, etc. Only got limited space, so I had to go to the second page. What authority would I have to look in something non-AU related? Okay, good question. Very good question. Get out of that. If you've got an investigation from a client asking you to investigate in the state where you are licensed, New South Wales, Victoria, Western Australia, Tasmania, South Australia, Queensland, or the Northern Territory where you are required to be licensed, and it involves that state, you can do it. Now, Ivan's investigation in relation to the person in Italy who he had to go and interview and check to see that he was still alive and interview his accountant, who had two sets of books, one for the tax office and one for the man. He had to go to Italy to do that. The accident happened in Western Australia. The vehicle, as you'll see in episode 44, this is why you should watch it, was a Victorian registered vehicle. So that means Ivan, who was in charge of the Transport Accident Commission in Victoria, had the right to investigate that accident, even though it was to an Italian citizen in Western Australia. So his authority to do that came from they're the insurers of that vehicle in which that person was injured. So your authority to do whatever you do will relate to the matter happened where you are licensed, and therefore you can investigate it. Now, if it happened in Queensland and it's really important, you can get a temporary license. Or if you're in New South Wales and it happens in Victoria, you can get a temporary license. So you can apply for that. You don't have to have a license in every state and territory. That will cost you an arm and a leg and a kidney. All right. But if you go overseas, it's got to emanate from a client who's asked you to do it as a result of something that happened in Victoria. Now, we had quite a few episodes back, and I haven't got it in front of me because that was a random question I wasn't expecting, an investigator who ended up on a Victorian investigation in London, in Italy, and in Russia on an investigation. Now, it was a $20 million investigation. It was a fraud matter, and it's still ongoing today, and it happened a long time ago. It's on your list in our investigation uni email that you get, and you can click on it and watch it. So my word, it happened in Victoria. He was a Victorian licensed investigator. He could go to all those countries and investigate it. Now, you can't just go and call yourself an investigator and do any random investigation that you want to in Korea, in Germany. They will have their own rules and regulations, and you'll have to check that out and find that out. Those investigators from those countries, they come over here and they study our course. And I get in front of them and I go, okay, this is CTP liability common issue, and this happens, and I contact the claimant, and they go, why are you calling me now? I've been, had the claim in for a week and a half. You've been so slow getting to me. What's going on? That's all the insurance company ripping people off. And I explain that through an interpreter to these people from Germany or Korea or Indonesia or the Philippines or wherever. And they all listen to the interpreter, look back at me and go, yeah, it's the same in our country. So they have the same motor vehicles, the same registration system, the same insurance, but they travel the world to see if they ever have to come here, are we the same? So they're checking that and they're finding that out, and they come personally. They won't do it online. So you must, if you're going to go and play in someone else's playground, you play by their rules. And be very aware that they're not all the same as ours. In our system, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. In other countries in Europe, for example, you're guilty until you prove yourself innocent. So you're going to be spending time in a correctional facility trying to prove you're innocent if you're doing the wrong thing, and you don't want to go there. So always check out what the local rules are. That's really, really important. So if it emanates from your state and you're Australian, every right to do it. If it doesn't emanate from your state, get a license in the other state, temporary or full, and that's okay. Not necessarily, no, the investigation is the issue. Every investigation turns on its facts. As comfortable as you will get as an investigator with doing investigations over time, matter-of-factly, you'll get really comfortable with it. You'll become very good at it. But the investigation turns on its issues and facts. Now, with our training course for private investigators, you have an investigation that you have to do where you have to identify 40 factors in relation to a matter and then come up with 50 questions. Now, it's very daunting for a beginning investigator and a merger to do that. Well, really, there's something like 300 factors and there's 7,000 questions. You only have to do 40 and 50, so that's okay. But that matter turns on its fact. What kind of investigation is it? It's a public liability investigation. What are the issues in relation to that matter? So you've got to look at that, and it turns on those facts for that investigation. So it's an individual investigation issue, not a blanket overseas authority issue. And the foundation of it is you must be licensed in the Australian state that it emanated from. People do emigrate to Australia and then they return home, either permanently or, to look after sick relatives or something like that. One thing that kept the Australian Federal Police very busy for years that they never understood is people that come to Australia as refugees have an absolute obligation to their family. If they do well and, they become employed and earn money, they have an absolute obligation to send money to their family back overseas. It's a family thing that they have in various countries. That's what they do. And the Australian Federal Police, when they first found out about this, some 40 years ago, thought, oh, this is all dodgy. They're earning money here and sending it overseas. And they never understood the culture. So they had to have training in the cultural system of their banking and their history and their family loyalties to find out that everything they were doing was quite okay. There was nothing wrong with it. But before that, they thought it was like criminal activity. So everything you do, you must check out thoroughly. And if you're going to go and do it overseas, find out what their rules are. Yeah, the important factor is the investigation itself. Everything, the wisest person I ever saw present in an investigation course, very unassuming, very funny, absolute gentleman. His name's Rob Winter. He said it, what I just said. Every investigation turns on its facts. It's an individual thing that you've got to make an assessment of. So this is why we go into great detail in investigation planning at the Australian Security Academy. You will find out when you've got a job that all the investigation plan is in your instructions. That's great if you work for someone else, but if someone comes to you with a problem, then you've got to be the business person and investigator with the nous to work out how to do that. Just like Andrew Chambers, who features in our Spy Curious programs from way back, talking about problem solved. And if you get his book, Problem Solved, The Blind Investigator, you really get good insights into how he carried that out, being solution focused for non-insurance clients over the years. And it's like old-fashioned investigating, but there is a corporate demand for it today. And every day, and particularly this week, I see people coming up with new requirements in investigations. And the one I got this week was a result of the pandemic. And it marries up with other types of desktop investigations and has created a huge demand out there and huge potential for associated investigators with the Australian Security Academy. So I'm really looking forward to that. What kind of music do private investigators like? Let's finally figure it out. Everybody's just dying to know. Type in hashtag spy. I'm going to draw it in a minute.
To me, I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing.
It's not those two.
Don't tell my heart, my neck.
Only one kind of music private investigators like. There it is. That's the kind of music private investigators like. People play it every night. As a result of that music, you're going to earn money because of the resulting emergency issue, whatever it is. That's what's going to happen. That's where you come into it. So that's very important. Okay, so you typed in hashtag spy. Let's see if I can actually get this thing working without Casey's support. I hope you can see it, people. I've got 3 entries. Xavier has won himself a private investigator surveillance coffee mug. Xavier, got to PM me your postal address, mate, so I can express post it down to you. People have had a very busy day. It's I think I've answered all my questions. Got all my questions there. Yeah, part-time, regular, full-time job, overseas, and the music, done all that. You've been watching episode 224. Really enjoyed it. Work safe. You've got to lift your game. You really do. In Victoria, unions don't tell your compliance enforcement inspectors what to do, right? That's not on. You've got to support the people you're sending out there to make the work safe. You don't support the union who barricade themselves in buildings and squirt hoses at people because they're scared. You don't do that. Very disappointed with your work, so very disappointed. Office of Fair Trading, 100% asleep with their regulation of private investigators in Queensland. Got to emphasise that, rub that right in. Congratulations, Xavier, well done. Really pleased, aren't you, Xavier? Yep, congratulations from Luke. That's what Xavier's won. People, we'll be back next week with another episode of Spy Curious. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed those job vacancies, the news out there that's been happening this week. Really big week, especially with the jukebox. Unbelievable. Oh, we think it might be bugged. Yes, it is bugged, mate. They're listening to everything and your emails and your computer activity as well, you goose. Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Thanks for watching, people. See you next week. I'm Mike Evans from the Australian Security Academy. I've got to go out in my usual way, if I can find it. Here we go.
작전 종료. 전원 복귀할 것.
Now, every private investigation agency in Australia ends their week. Well, that's what they do in the movies.